Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on optimizing Facebook and Instagram ROI with call analytics. This is the 6th episode in our I Can Do That with DialogTech series. So welcome to any newcomers to the series, and welcome back to any of our returning visitors who have joined us in previous months. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started is we are recording this webinar today, so we will be emailing out that recording post-webinar. And then if you have any questions throughout as we start going and talking through some of our strategies here, please feel free to just submit those via the chat box on your screen, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. My name is Catherine Buckles. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at DialogTech, and today I'm joined with Kelly Schultz, who is our Director of Digital Media and Analytics. And we're really excited today to be talking to you about kind of the drastic changes that the social media industry has undergone just between its growth and different engagement via mobile. And then we really want to dive into how you can drive more calls from Facebook and Instagram, and then 4 strategies to use those call analytics to optimize your social ROI. So to begin, I want to talk about some of those drastic changes in the explosive growth that the social media industry has been experiencing. First and foremost, to start, let's just touch on the massive audience that there is in the social media atmosphere. So there are currently 2.8 billion active social media users worldwide. That's actually 37% of the global population. That's crazy. That is a large percentage of us. And it's people seeking connectivity, and it's people who are online and they are social. And so adults who are online aren't just on 1 or 2 platforms. They actually have 7 social media accounts on average. And in 2012, that same average was actually 3 social media accounts. So the moral of the story here is really that behavior has drastically shifted between not only the number of social media users, but just how many different platforms they're engaging with and how their attention has shifted amongst those platforms. So it's not just consumers' behavior that has shifted, but it's also businesses. And businesses are really responding to the shift in where consumers spend their time, right? There are now 65 million businesses using the free business pages on Facebook. And there's also about 5 million businesses with an Instagram business profile. But what's really interesting with this is the number of businesses that engage with advertising on these platforms. Only 4 million are actively paying for advertising on Facebook, and only 500,000 regularly use Instagram ads. So there's still room for businesses to take advantage of how they're advertising to consumers on social media, how they're reaching and engaging with those consumers on Facebook and Instagram. But how many people are really on Facebook and on Instagram? Facebook has nearly 2 billion users, and Instagram now has 700 million. So it's interesting to note too, Facebook's been around obviously for quite a while, since the early 2000s, but and the Instagram's explosive growth has really been seen between 2010 and 2016, where they acquired 600 million users in 6 years. So both platforms do continue to innovate with the offerings that they're providing, even stealing maybe from some competitive platforms some of their features. But it's just interesting to note the massive audience growth and popularity that these platforms still have. In fact, Facebook still reigns as the most popular social media network. You saw that 2 billion number, nearly 2 billion users. Well, there's 2.8 billion users in social media in the world. So clearly, Facebook still reigns as the most popular, with about 80% of internet users that log into the site. On the flip side, Instagram has very avid engagers, which is very interesting. 35% of Instagram users actually check the app multiple times a day, and 51% open it every single day. So it's just interesting to understand how frequently consumers are engaging with Instagram. And what is the role that mobile plays with this changing landscape? Clearly, it's incredibly important. It's pivotal. Majority of Facebook's users are mobile. Instagram is a mobile app, so it really is pivotal to the role of the changing landscape in social media. So not only is 80% of time spent on social media mobile, as I mentioned, Instagram's a mobile app. It's Interesting to note, Facebook actually stopped reporting on mobile users in their quarterly report because nearly all of their users access the platform from a mobile device. So it's just kind of interesting to see the shift in just how they're actually reporting and analyzing that information and providing it to the public. So, with more consumer time spent on mobile, businesses are also following suit. Like I said, they're building business pages and they are advertising on there. And mobile is clearly that dominating force for how the businesses are advertising to their consumers. In fact, Facebook's mobile ad revenue reached $7.2 billion last year, which was up 61% year over year. So mobile now represents 84% of their total ad revenue. It's where the consumers are at, it's where the dollars are going. And same with Instagram. This year alone, Instagram is expected to generate almost $4 billion in revenue. So it's good to note. But the question kind of remains, what does this mean for how consumers convert from the mobile advertising that they are seeing? And one thing to understand is this click-to-call revolution that we're experiencing with smartphones. The reality is, I bet, raise of hands over the phone here, how many people have tried filling out a web form, clicked through, gotten frustrated, there's too many fields, it's too clunky on a small smartphone screen, and just wanted a simpler solution. Well, that's the reality with a smartphone and this click-to-call revolution that we say. 2 taps of your screen and you're making a phone call, right? You're clicking on the phone number and then you're clicking to connect. So it's easier and faster and much more seamless and much more natural conversion path for consumers. But what is that doing for the conversions? Businesses are receiving billions of phone calls from these mobile social ads. In fact, by 2019, there will be 36 billion calls made to U.S. businesses. That's over 500% growth from 2014. So the reality here is just that social media marketers can't ignore phone calls at this stage of the game. It's just, with smartphones and the way people are converting, people still want to talk, especially in really high converting, considered purchases industries, right? So ones where you need to speak with someone to complete a purchase. So you're probably saying, all right, Catherine, how do I drive calls from social media? You don't think about it necessarily as a conversion type. You're used to, analyzing click-throughs or people who want to learn more, right? Well, we'll get into that a little bit here. First and foremost, there are a lot of different ad types that you can utilize in Facebook to begin with. And really, it's just taking a step back and understanding what your marketing objectives are. Are you driving awareness, consideration, conversions? There's many different ad types that are available to you. Kelly is going to dive into some very more specific strategies in a little bit, but just at a high level, there's different ad copies, there's different creative, there's different call to actions, right, that you can take advantage of. One of those call to action actually is the Call Now button that you can use in a local reach ad. So this is something that you can take advantage of as the Call Now call button, but you also need to think about using Call Now language in your ad copy, right, or in your link text, or what have you. So it's kind of framing the whole message of your ad to incentivize people to call, or maybe it's here you go, special limited time savings that you might have and be offering, or speaking to an agent right away. There's many different ways that you can use your messaging to really stop someone in the scroll, because that's a challenge sometimes, right? Is how do you stop someone from scrolling through on social media, right? So it's engaging creative, engaging messaging, and then the right call to action. So outside of just a Call Now button, you're driving people from these ads to landing pages, right? So it's optimizing those landing pages and your website, your mobile website in general, to drive calls. And that includes many different things, one of which is putting a call button or a phone number on every single page. You can see here, Home Depot's website has a little call button in the corner. Or Salesforce has a little, pop-up footer that's permanent, that just stays there and sits on the page, so it's always prominent. That's the key, is just kind of keeping that phone number, call button, what have you, very prominent throughout your entire site for consistency and just accessibility for the visitor. Another way to do that is to maybe just test a call now as the main call to action on your landing page. Don't have a form. Try, if it's a smartphone, try just driving them to call. And this example is a really great one too, because you have two opportunities, right? So you're keeping that consistency and that prominence in the upper header with the call now button, but then your call to action on your landing page is that call to order now, driving them just to that single call to action, not confusing anybody, not taking them away from the page, but just keeping them there and driving that call. Another opportunity is, when you do have a web form, let's say someone gives up on the web form, like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. I'm sure we all have at some point or another. If they give up on the web form, don't lose their business. Give them the opportunity to engage with you in a different way. You can see here, call an agent 24/7. You're not just saying call now, call, or just giving a phone number. You're saying an agent will be there to help you right now, 24/7 at any time. So it's just, that's a great messaging there to kind of say we're available and we're ready to take your, engage with you and get your business. Another way is take a little step further, be a little innovative with how you request that call on your website, your landing pages. Test pop-ups. It catches attention, and instead of letting them get distracted by your website, you're just driving that conversion right away. Now, outside of just using the landing pages to drive calls or the call now language in your advertising, another way that you can do this is you can actually click to call directly from a Facebook or Instagram ad, similar to how you would for a search ad you would see in your Google results, search results, right? So, again, same goes like what I was talking about earlier. When people are scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, the key is catching their attention, right? So that comes with the ad copy, that comes with your creative that you're using, and then it comes with the call to action. So, we have here contact us call to action, and what's going to happen is people with this click to call revolution, they want to click. They want the easy little route. So when you click to call from one of these ads, it generates that phone call, and then once that phone call ends, they're taken to the landing page that they would have been directed to with a regular ad as well. So when there's 19 billion calls coming from mobile social advertising, and you combine that with this click-to-call revolution, it's really your opportunity to engage with consumers in this very easy and seamless way from their smartphones. So now I'm going to hand it over to Kelly, and she's going to get us started on 4 specific ways to use the call analytics to optimize your Facebook and Instagram ROI. And I'm going to start with attribution, because we just talked about how do you drive calls, but how do you understand what campaigns and what ads and attributing what advertising campaigns and your social media campaigns that the calls are coming from. So over to you, Kelly.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. This is a little bit of a shift for me to actually talk about attribution at the beginning of my slides. I feel like I always first focus on the different audiences, the ad types, but I think in this specific case, it makes sense to talk about attribution and reporting directly within Facebook, the Facebook Ads Manager, because it will actually help me go through all of the optimization and ideas on where and how to build audience and why to do it that way. So we're going to work a little bit backwards today. But first I'm actually going to take you into my Facebook Ads Manager account. And if any of you have a Facebook Ads Manager already, you'll know that you can see your overall account, you can see a campaign level, which is the highest hierarchy, then goes into the ad sets, and then the ads. And all of these tabs are really important to start to understand just some basic performance metrics. So if you're new to Facebook Ads Manager, I would say start with some of the basic metrics that you're really looking at, similarly to how you look at some of these metrics for clicks, impressions. You can see my first one, I'm looking at the campaign section, and I have clicks, I have impressions, I have specific to link clicks, and then I also include my conversion data, whether it's a website conversion or in this case a phone call. You can see that I include everything at the campaign level. I actually also take it a step further, and I can, and it's the exact same at the ad set and the ad level as well. But you can see all of these basic metrics at the different hierarchies of your campaigns. And it's really important just to start to get understanding of how your metrics are performing at a campaign, at an ad set, and at an ad level. The next thing I would say is go a step further. Look at some of your enhanced campaign metrics, and not just at the campaign level, but also we'll go into the ad set and the ad as well. Whenever you select a specific campaign and you are looking at clicks, phone calls, website conversions, impressions, whatever metric that you're specifically looking at, the beauty about Facebook Ads Manager is that's where you're actually running your Facebook and Instagram placement. So this is where you want to start to get some more enhanced metrics. You actually want to click. There's a, all the way at the side, you can see I have a drop down, and it's the title of the drop down is called Breakdown, and that's standard in all of your Facebook Ads Manager's accounts. But then you can start to understand, how am I going to break out this data? And so one of my favorite ways to break it out is by placement and device. I'm showing you my most favorite because this really helps us with optimizing budgets and different ads and bids and scheduling, and we'll get into all of that first. But here you can actually see where your ads are showing and how they're performing. So whether it's in the Facebook news feed, if it's desktop, if it's mobile, what device, because Facebook actually lets you choose where you want your ad to be shown. So this is going to start to give you some more detail into how your campaigns are performing and at what level. And the next one is at the ad set level. So again, you can select a very specific campaign and go into the ad sets. And the ad sets will start to tell you what your audiences look like and what the different targeting methods that you have in place here. So this is where you can even start to look at age and gender. And remember, the beauty about Facebook and Instagram that you don't get with search, think of how much information these users give Facebook. They give them their age, their birthday, their demographic, their location, where they used to live, where they live now, where they used to work, where they work now, are they married, what's their status, what they like. So all of those details that users give Facebook is an opportunity for us as advertisers to use that to find audiences that match our ideal customer profile. But when you set up your accounts, you also want to make sure that you're reporting on all of them, because it can be very different in terms of what you think is resonating and what is actually resonating with the audience. So at the ad set level, you'll want to do more breakouts. You can look at age and gender. You can look at, again, your DMA region. You can look at the placement and device again. So just get as much information as possible. Start to pull these reports at every level. And then even down to the ad. So Catherine talked about doing a lot of testing on different creatives. And so you want to see how your different creatives, different call to actions, the different images are actually performing. And I'm just choosing different breakdowns here, but I would urge you to look at as many as you possibly can to pull together insights. But here I'm looking at platform and device. So if you're running Instagram ads, you have to still run it through Facebook. But in order, you want to break it out in terms of your reporting, because you can always say, you know what, I don't want to run Instagram ads, or I want one campaign specific to Instagram and one campaign specific to Facebook. So you can pick and choose. And if you've attended any of my webinars before, I'm a huge, huge advocate of breaking out your data so that you can put the budget towards the top performers. So I gave you some metrics. There we go. And now I'm going to go through how to use these performance metrics. So I have 5 steps on how to look at different performance metrics. The first one is customizing the columns to show the performance metrics relevant to your brand and goals. That can be a lot, right? So some of your campaigns may be there to drive video views. You can look at how many videos went 25% of the way through, how many went 50%, how many of them went 95%. You can look at engagement. You can look at website conversions. You can just look at basic traffic. You can look at phone calls. You can upload different conversion types into Facebook and report on it in the performance metrics that I just showed you. So customize your columns. Don't just use the basic metrics from Facebook. Start to customize your columns and save those views so that every campaign that you're looking at, you're understanding what the goal is and how it's actually performing against that goal. Compare your data. Always compare your data against different time frames. A lot of our businesses are seasonality, specifically if you're doing e-commerce, but even if you're doing lead gen, depending on who your target market is, you're going to have some seasonality. So compare your data. Compare it against the prior day. Compare it against the prior week, prior month, and prior year. And I know sometimes day over day seems very tedious, but I cannot tell you the number of times I find errors in something. Whenever I just look at day over day, or if I launch a new ad, if tracking isn't set up the right way, this is how you're going to catch it. And that way you're not running your ad, spending money with having broken tracking or something that's off. So always compare your data and look for dips, look for an increase, and explain them. Something I learned at the agency, when I was at an agency, is detail your information, your metrics, understand why it happened, and then take action on it, whether it's to pause, optimize, improve, whatever it is. Make sure that you have an explanation and can take an action plan. Get granular. I already mentioned this. I'm a huge, huge advocate of breaking down your data. Know down to the location, the business location, the age, gender, time of day, placement and device that your top performing campaigns are occurring at, because this will allow you to have a campaign that is dedicated to really what I would call your cash cow, right? If you have 5 locations that get 80% of your conversions, you don't want to be capping out on budget there. You want to make sure that you have a campaign that's devoted to those 5 locations. And then if you want to still target other locations, set up another one with a different budget and target those locations with a different budget. Always make sure your core budget is getting as many conversions as possible, and then have a test budget for the different ones. So that's why I would say break down your data, get those enhanced campaign metrics. And to that point, ensure your top performing ads and audiences are not capping out on budget. So Catherine went through a lot of the different ad types. You can launch, hundreds and I'm sure thousands of different ads and campaigns in Facebook. I'm working with somebody right now on my campaigns, and we just have a lot to filter through, right? So the main thing though is that you want to make sure that your top performing ads, your top performing audiences that are driving the goals for your business at the most efficient rate, don't let those cap. I absolutely advocate testing new things, but continue to feed your cash cow, continue to feed your top performing. I would say it's similar to not capping out on brand and search. Do that with Facebook as well. And there I go. I talk ahead of my slides, right? Build out your testing campaigns to enhance your lower performing campaigns. Always test new stuff. We talk a lot in digital marketing about A/B testing, multivariate testing. The idea is that you always have a loser. It is a good thing, right? Because that means you always have some ad, some campaign that is driving your top performance. You want to try and knock it down so that you find a better top performance. But always test new stuff. Always have a loser. That is the way that your digital campaigns and your Facebook campaigns are going to continually to grow. You don't want to get stagnant, so just continually to test new pieces.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Kelly. And just thank you everyone for submitting some questions. We've been getting some good ones, so keep them coming as we move through this. To kind of switch, so it's great to get attribution, and you got to understand how your campaigns are performing and what's driving your conversions. You also need to take a step back and really understand who the audience is, right? So with Facebook and Instagram, 82% of online women access Facebook, so it's predominantly female, and it's actually the best place to reach millennials and Gen X, surprisingly enough. On the flip side, 90% of Instagram users are under the age of 35. They're also predominantly female, with 38% of online women accessing the site and 26% of online men. So there's a lot of value to be found in understanding who your audience is, and that's what we're going to get into next. We're going to talk about building and targeting audiences.
Thanks, Catherine. And I definitely fall into that, especially since I became a mom. I'm a huge proponent of moms groups, and I'm like an advertiser's dream, which is good since I do this as well for a living. Anyway, so now let's get into the building and targeting some audiences. So I already showed you guys how to break out your reports and look at some of your data. So now I'm going to get into actually building different audiences, because that's another huge proponent of Facebook, as I mentioned earlier. The data that you can get from Facebook on specific audiences is really bar none. I haven't seen, it's one of the best platforms to get really in-depth data, but you want to make sure that you're building your audiences in a very specific way. So that's what we're going to get into. So first, building the right audience. So a lot of us are very, very familiar with retargeting, but a lot of us are also very familiar with just site retargeting. And so somebody hits a specific page on your website, you retarget them with similar creative. It's so much more robust than just standard site retargeting. Facebook is great because you can custom base your audiences for people who have interacted with your business. So if they've called your business, if they had a specific conversation with one of your sales team, you can build all of these different audiences that are very, very personal. If they filled out a form that was for one piece of content versus another piece of content, right? You can segment those audiences and feed them all back into Facebook as separate audiences that you can target with unique creative. If they do any type of engagement, people who like X or Y brand, right? People who share, you can retarget those types of users as well. App activity, so you can target a lot of different users within Facebook, which is really great, and it's all part of their audience building, which I will actually show you guys what the audience building feature looks like within Facebook. The other great thing about Facebook is that you build custom audiences that are retargeting, so it's great. You're doing retargeting off of consumers who have called your brand, filled out a form, visited your site, maybe engaged with your brand, but Facebook also lets you build lookalike models. So again, we'll get into this, but it's very much a opportunity for you to build a custom audience and then have Facebook find lookalike audiences based on that. So you could even input your CRM data. You can input email addresses. You can input your customer base phone numbers. You can input where your customers are located, what their interests are, and then say, Facebook, I want to find like-minded consumers or like-minded customers that are very similar to my top customers. And so Facebook will actually start to build lookalike models, and you can do it as narrow, as tight as lookalikes possibly can be, or you can expand it to get more of a wider reach. So Facebook really gives you a lot of options to do retargeting as well as lookalike audiences for your prospecting. One thing I would say, and this is very specific though to people who are just focusing on new customer acquisition, create audience exclusions, or have, for sure, always create audience exclusions, and if you're still doing a customer campaign where you want to upsell, that's fine to include these people in that too. But I would say don't continue to target the same customer or the same user with the same content if they've already become your customer. So start to exclude customers who either converted online, right? Maybe they did, they filled out the application and are now avid users of whatever platform that you're promoting, or they converted over the phone, they're now a customer. So the messaging is just going to be a lot different, or maybe your marketing dollars are strictly focused on new customers. The other ways that you could look at it are, okay, if you're just launching now a Facebook campaign, you can exclude people who have either called customer support or even hit the login page, right? If somebody hit the login page and inputted their information, then you know that they're a current customer. So it just helps you kind of segment your customers and serve either different creative if you're doing an upsell opportunity, or just exclude from your budget that's specific to getting new customer acquisition. So I promised you guys I would show you how to build audiences in Facebook ads, or Facebook Business Manager will look similar. But this is where the feature is. So you can see there's two options, right? You can have an exclusion. You see the custom audience as an exclude, or you can create new. And so whenever you're building new audiences, you want to label them as such, right? If they're site retargeting, if they're a specific product, if they're current customers. But this is where you choose, okay, I want to build a custom audience, and that would be what we talked about with your retargeting. And so that could be either people who've called, people who visited your site, or you can build a lookalike audience. And you can build a lookalike audience off of a custom audience. So it gives you a lot of opportunities to get very specific with how you want to target your ads and your campaigns. And so this is just a little bit of save your audiences, right? Because then you can repurpose them and update them, and you'll get to understand their size, when they were created. So you can see I've got quite a few different saved audiences that I can apply to my campaigns, and they get continually updated. So if it's a customer list, you can see if it's a lookalike model on the fourth tab. You can see this was a lookalike model off of a very custom audience, and I did as high of targeting as possible with a 1% target. And then you can see what the list size is. The other great thing is that you can break out your performance metrics by audiences so that you know what's performing the best. The other good thing is if you have partners, right? You can actually share your data among different partners or among different ad accounts. So if you're a brand that is kind of a hierarchy brand that has a whole bunch of other similar products and they all have different Facebook Ads Managers account, you can actually share that data among each other. So it's a really good opportunity to build up your audiences, do some cross-selling on this front, and improve your campaign performances. And so I'm going to go into this, but I have a very specific naming convention. So if you already have your own naming convention for your campaigns, your ad sets, and your ads, all the power to you. I'm going to give you my tips just based on how I can get my understanding of data. So something I do, remember how I showed you guys how you can break down a lot of your different performance? But something I do in terms of naming my campaigns, I actually name my campaign based on the audience. So I break out my retargeting audiences, my prospecting audiences. I break out my different campaign types. If I have a campaign that's very specific to the lead gen form, I have that as its own campaign. And the reason I do this is because it lets me devote very specific budget to each of these campaigns, and then I can get very specific reporting by audience and by goal. I then customize your ad sets. So remember I talked about the hierarchy, about its campaign level, ad set level, and then ad. So I customize my ad set to really say what the messaging and product focus is. So if this is, if I'm promoting one of our very specific products, and my goal is lead gen, then I include my naming convention that way. It helps me organize my data. It also helps my team or anybody new who comes in and says, what's this campaign for? They know right off the bat. So be very consistent with how you name your campaigns. This is how I do it, and I find it super helpful. But again, if you have any other suggestions, you can always put it in the chat box, and we can even bring that up too. You know, I know everybody has some of their own ways. But this, again, just lets us really be very specific in optimizing our cost per target effectiveness, setting your budget and setting your bids, because at the end of the day, none of us have, I don't think any of us have a finite amount of media dollars to spend, but we have very specific goals that we have to hit. So make sure you're using every dollar to its maximum potential.
Great, yeah, thank you. So, you know, that's obviously understanding your audience, a little bit touching on understanding their behavior, and so to kind of keep going on that train, this is an interesting stat that I found, was that 75% of Facebook users spend 20 or more minutes on the platform every single day. And like I mentioned before, for Instagram, 51% of users open the app daily. So, you know, I thought that was an interesting observation to kind of segue into, you know, taking that information, taking your audience information, taking the behavioral information, and then, you know, using that to make intelligent conversion optimization. So Kelly's going to take us through some of those now.
Yep. All right, so I've given you guys a ton of information already. Stick with me. We have a little bit more to go. Facebook's really a great platform, and you get a lot of options, so I'm just trying to cover as many as I can. So we talked about understanding the devices, understanding how your audience performs, but also there's some scheduling optimizations that I want to bring you guys aware of. you want to make sure you're optimizing your budget to achieve the most efficient conversion. So a lot of us, or at least I used to, I don't know how everybody did, but I used to just do daily budgets. I'm very similar to daily budgets because I grew up really in paid search, and that's how AdWords works, right? You really focus on daily budgets. But a feature of Facebook is that you actually have to use the lifetime budget in order to use their scheduling feature. And this is where it gets really important because your Facebook audience, who you're targeting, is going to interact with Facebook at different times of the day and different days of the week. So make sure that you have as much budget going to these different schedules as possible to capture your top converters. So if you use a lifetime budget, it's actually going to allow you to run ads on a very specific schedule. And this is really important to use, I would say, for lead gen ads specifically, because if you have a salesperson follow up with these ads, you want to make sure that you have a salesperson who's on staff. So I actually don't run ads on lead gen ads on the weekend because I don't have a salesperson on staff during that time, and I find that whenever a lead goes even just 24 hours, the conversion rate is less. So my dollars aren't working as hard. So if you set up lifetime budgets and set up a very specific schedule that is catered to each goal and each ad type, right, I think you're really going to find that you get better cost per goals. Device level bidding. So again, we got into this a little bit, but every audience is going to vary in terms of when they access Facebook. Catherine gave you some audience stats earlier, and it very much varies by geo. It very much varies by gender, by age, by their lifestyle. If you're targeting moms who have newborns, right, and I always go the mom route because I am a mom, but you're probably going to be selling baby stuff in the middle of the night because new moms are awake in the middle of the night and they're scrolling Facebook. I actually know somebody who launched a Facebook app specific to selling and reselling children's clothes, and their most active and popular time is between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. because moms are up and they're scrolling. So know your audience, know when they're accessing Facebook and engaging with Facebook. Is it on their morning commute? Is it in the middle of the day at lunchtime? And remember, all of that varies by the geo, by the lifestyle. So make sure that you are monitoring that very closely. To Catherine's point, you can run click-to-call ads in Facebook mobile and Instagram mobile. Have staff on available, or don't run those ads in those specific times, because if they call, you're paying for this, right? And if they call and they get a voicemail or there's just nobody on staff, your dollars probably aren't being as heavily used. So try to keep all of those customer experiences in mind whenever you're running these types of ads. And then the location. So you want to know, I find that this is one of the most underused segments is location. Oftentimes we think that if we just target the United States, or if we just target this DMA, or if we just target a few of the top cities, that they're going to, we're fine. Every location is different, and some locations are going to be a top converter, some locations won't be. I'm not saying exclude or not run anywhere, but just know where your top locations are. You can even get your data from Google Analytics before you launch to kind of test things out. Just make sure you know your location so that you know how people are interacting, when they're calling, when they're converting online. And the same thing with local, which is what we're going to get into now. Local search is huge, right? There's volume of near me searches has just increased substantially over the past few years. And it's the same thing with Facebook. And I included a whole bunch of stats. I'm not going to go over all of them, but for the different verticals, you can see in this slide that when people search, they expect results then and there, and they expect those results to match exactly what they're looking for. So make sure you're showing them the business location that's as close as possible. Just for example, insurance, in the insurance vertical, 44% of users expect to find an agent within 5 miles. So make sure you are also adjusting your campaigns towards your store locations, and just utilize your local ad targeting, utilize zip code data, utilize DMA data. And also utilize local phone numbers. I think you're really going to find that you'll see a higher click-through rate. So again, you're going to get all of these slides. If you guys are in one of these verticals, you can get your stats to help you make your case, but really make sure that you're utilizing local ad targeting. And mix up where you place the ads, right? We talked about how you can break down your data and look at Facebook newsfeed, Instagram, desktop versus mobile. And remember, the audiences are going to interact with your ads differently. So Instagram users interact differently than Facebook users. But Facebook combines Instagram into the ads. So if you're not breaking out your placements, you're just serving the same creative to all of the different placements, whether it's desktop or mobile. And you can even exclude out desktop if you want to, right? Because most of the usage is on mobile. So maybe you keep just your form fills, those landing pages to desktop. So just keep all of that in mind, but mix up where you're placing your ads and cater your ads towards that. Try videos, try unique call to actions. Facebook gives you a lot of different call to actions. Contact us, call now, download. I don't even have them all off the top of my head. Carousel ad types, and then make sure to preview your ad. We all can get text heavy, but if you look at your ad at every placement, you will know that your text can get cut off quickly. So make sure you're also previewing your ad placements. And this is just an example of how it looks within Facebook. And Facebook Ads Manager, I swear, every time I log in, there's something new in there. I was just in there with Catherine a few days ago, and Instagram Stories is new in this in Facebook. So there's just a lot of options for you to run your creative with, and try them all. Try the carousel ads, try the videos. Even if your goal is acquisition, still run some video campaigns, because Facebook will also measure any type of view-through conversion data that's going to come in. So if they view your ad and then 30 days later go to your site directly and convert, you'll still see that conversion data in Facebook. Ads, I mentioned ads within Instagram Stories. It's an opportunity to really be native, right? It's new, it's popular, it's kind of taking over a little bit of the Snapchat era, right? And be a first mover on this. So I find that when I tested lead gen forms the moment they came out, there's not as many other advertisers testing that right away. So be a first mover. If you can be as nimble as possible, Facebook is the place to do it. The other places that I would say, and I learned this quickly firsthand, ads go stale very, very quickly. Always, always change up your images, change up your headlines. Even if your value message is about the same, try to change up your taglines every 1 to 2 weeks. 2 weeks, that's the, don't let it run more than 2 weeks is what I'm finding with my data. And constantly test your new creative. This is just an example of one that I found. And right, they just have a lot of different images. It's all kind of the same value prop, but it looks like a new ad, even though they're all focusing still on the same thing and the end result.
Great. And so, to kind of transition into, all right, we know Facebook, we know Instagram, we've been talking about it for a while, but there's a lot of other channels that marketers are marketing on, right, and advertising on. So how do they work together? And this one study that we found actually found that there was a 6.3% lift in mobile search clicks from a Facebook ad exposure. So after a consumer had seen a Facebook ad, they went to Google, they searched, and with that brand, they saw a bump up in the click-through rate on those paid search ads. And so it just goes to show consumers don't differentiate between channels. They don't differentiate between devices. It's this omni-channel, cross-channel world, and it's interesting to understand how the different channels are working together. So that kind of takes us into our next section, which dives into how do you measure cross-channel and how do you attribute it?
Yep. Okay, so this is we're at the home stretch, guys. I'm actually just going to show you a quick screenshot of just how it looks in Facebook Ads Manager whenever you're setting up your conversion tracking. So Always make sure to set up your conversion tracking before launch. If you did launch already, get it set up as soon as possible, right? You can do the pixel tracking using the Facebook Pixel, absolutely do that. But you can also use the offline tracking. So that's where I just want to make sure that you guys know that you can feed your CRM data, your call data. I think you can even do in-store visits into the offline tracking piece of Facebook. So that's really important. And then you just want to make sure you're measuring every conversion at every level. So whether you're promoting mobile app downloads, you can see I do not promote mobile app downloads because we don't have a mobile app, but I wanted you guys to know that that is available if you are promoting it. Website conversions, phone calls, lead gen forms, there's video reporting. So whatever the goal is, make sure that you're measuring it and put that into your column at every single level and then segment your data. That's going to really give you the first initial goals in succeeding in your campaigns. The next thing I would say is go into Google Analytics. If you do not have Google Analytics, get it. It is a free tool and it is invaluable. It's going to start to give you click path data. So the free version of Google Analytics will give you all of your click path to conversion data. And so I actually pulled all of my paid search and my Facebook campaign data into a view because I wanted to see, is a first mover, is it more first mover and more top of funnel, more bottom funnel, and just how the consumers interacted. Do we get a lot of cross-channel? Do people click on a Google ad and then still see us on Facebook because they should with our retargeting, right? So get top conversion path reports. Know how your data works together. If Facebook is a first click for multiple other last click conversions, it's still doing its job, right? You're still getting that conversion even if it didn't come last click through Facebook. So look at click path data in Google Analytics. The other thing is look at assisted conversions, and here you can break it out by source and medium. And again, I just included my Google as well as my Facebook just to see what the last click data is versus what the assisted conversion. So assisted conversion means that the last click conversion actually came through a different channel. So it's possible that it came through direct or SEO, through a different social channel, through a paid search ad, whatever it may be. But this report in Google Analytics is going to start to tell you how Facebook is driving assisted conversions because it may be a third of them. In my case, I actually get another 9 conversions off of this specific campaign that I was running, right? And that's a lot out of when there was only 27 last click conversions. And it changes your cost per acquisition goal too. So just know how Facebook is also impacting your other channels so that you're not just looking at one thing in a silo. And then lastly then, break out your data. I know I'm a broken record on this, but know how things are performing mobile. Look at your assisted conversions by mobile versus desktop. So maybe they're first finding out about your brand through a Facebook ad, but then they're converting later through a paid search desktop ad. So that just the more you understand about how your consumers are interacting and how people are converting, the better your budget is going to be allocated and the better your campaigns are going to perform. So get as much data as possible and keep optimizing.
Great, thanks, Kelly. Yeah, just to quickly summarize what we've driven through here today is, obviously it's not really a surprise that social media engagement is at an all-time high, but it is, the engagement over the number of platforms is growing, and obviously mobile social engagement is peaking, and it's with that mobile engagement comes new conversion types that marketers have to understand and optimize for and attribute, because otherwise you're missing conversions or that you could be driving more conversions. So the successful marketers that we've seen and we've worked with within Facebook and Instagram, they're doing this, so they're attributing those call conversions and targeting new audiences based on that to just really drive better ROI for themselves. And so, what is it that we do here at DialogTech to help this is we really want to help marketers expand the customer engagement that they can optimize, and this is another channel, another way for them to do that. And that's really what our goal here is. And so today we talked a lot about this first piece where, and this is how we do it basically, so we talked a lot about this first piece of call attribution. And there's a lot of other ways that you can help once a phone call is driven, kind of make sure you get that final conversion and you get that final sale. And that's through personalized conversation. So if you drive calls, make sure they're routed to the right place, the right person, at the right time, just to really streamline that call experience and make it a better and more positive experience overall. And then you can also dive deeper into the actual conversation, so you know which calls resulted in a sale, what was actually spoken, and you can use this information and use those kind of keywords and stuff to optimize your marketing. And then this fourth piece here is really a lot of also what we were talking about today too, is this concept of activating your call data in different marketing tools that you're using, that you're already using. So like Kelly was mentioning, Google Analytics. You can also do it in your bid management platforms. But the key here today really is that you can activate your call data within Facebook. And it's giving you that holistic attribution where you're already optimizing your Facebook ads anyway. And so you get that additional column, just like you would see in AdWords or Analytics. You're getting that additional column that represents phone calls, and using that to better optimize and better target your Facebook advertising. So that's all that we have for today. We have a bunch of questions. If there's any more, please throw them at us right now. But, in the meantime, I just want to let you know that our next I Can Do That with DialogTech webinar, is going to be in August, and we're going to be diving really deeply into that cross-channel analytics concept. And how do role do calls play in that? How do you analyze it? How do you view all of that, right? So we'll keep an eye out for some communication about that, and we look forward to seeing you guys there. But as for the questions right now, let's start with Eli had one that he asked, if you really want to drive calls, is it possible to buy Facebook ads that only show on mobile, or is it better to buy ads that show on other devices too?
Yeah, so I would say yes, you can absolutely only go on mobile ads. You can pick and choose the placements that you want. It'll be whenever you set up your, I think it's whenever you set up your ad set in the campaign that you can choose actually it may be the ad, sorry. One of the levels for sure, you can choose where you want your ad to be shown. I would say absolutely more calls come in from mobile, but you also have to keep in mind that you're on desktop and somebody hits your landing page on desktop, that they may either call or fill out the form or whatever the other action is on your landing page on desktop. So think about that one more as a paid search, but more Facebook interaction and engagement happens on mobile than it does on desktop. And absolutely still buy ads that show on other devices. This is in no way to say don't try out desktop, but maybe try out a different call to action. So the form fill might work better, or an e-commerce purchase might work better on desktop if it's not driven to a mobile optimized page, or if it's just a longer form fill, or a multi-page, right? I used to work on a client that had multiple pages in order to get an account, and so that just worked so much better on desktop. And so it's just using your budget to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. I think you had one more question. I'm just going to follow up on it, Eli. You can drive calls from Instagram ads. You're right, it is mainly images, but there is a little bit of text, and depending on what your call to action is, you can still drive calls. So I use the call to action on Instagram ads, contact us. The great thing about the DialogTech click-to-call feature is that while it does trigger the phone call, if they decide to cancel out of the phone call, the landing page still loads. So it is no harm to not do it, and it's just a better option if you're on mobile and you want, if a call is more valuable to your brand. And the landing page, again, still loads, so you still get the retargeting, and you still have the option for them to get as much information from the landing page as needed. Yeah, definitely. And it goes back to a little bit what I was talking about with optimizing the landing pages. You could try just doing a call now, call to action only on a landing page from mobile. So there's definitely ways to just make sure your messaging is driving that call to action. I'm going to combine a couple questions that we have here because I think a couple of them might fit together. And the first is, how do I actually see calls or get those calls within Facebook Ads Manager?
And then with that, how do you set up a phone call driven campaign?
Yeah, so you want to, so DialogTech has an integration. This is obviously that I can do that with DialogTech, where you can automatically get your call data into your Facebook account, into that offline event set that I showed you, and it'll feed into all of your performance reports at the campaign level, at the ad set level. The other thing about it being in the offline event set is that you can do your retargeting off of callers or lookalike audiences off of callers. So that's really helpful as well. And then how do you set up a phone call driven campaign? Really it's going to be about your call to actions, and it's going to be about your placements. I mentioned a little bit earlier that we find more calls do come from mobile phones, in, at least in my campaigns. It obviously can be different for different people's campaigns. So use the call to action in the reach awareness. The awareness campaign target has a reach option. I think Catherine showed it in one of her earlier slides, and that actually gives you the call to action, call now, native within the Facebook. So you don't even have to put the call now type into your description. It's actually the call to action button. So that's one of the best ways I think that you can drive calls, and definitely in your local campaigns. For sure you'll get calls from there.
Yeah. All right, we have a couple more here. So Kelsey asked, how can you over-target an ad?
I'm guessing you mean by narrowing
Yeah, narrowing it.
target. I would say just break out your audiences really detailed as possible. So I showed you in some of the slides that you can save audiences and continually update if you need to, but just have the different audiences saved, whether it's site retargeting, whether it's phone calls, whether it's current customers, or however you are, just save your audiences in very specific types. That'll help you with narrowing. And then you could start off your campaign for like even 3 to 4 days. You don't have to go crazy, but letting it run across all desktop or letting it run across all mobile, and then just see what your placements are that are driving. If you're new to Facebook, if you already have some Facebook data, go ahead and break it out. Look at your insight data through your Facebook organic information. But break out your data really early on so that you can make those optimizations. And then just have super tight campaigns so that the budget you put for that campaign is really going to get you the most conversion. And then a canvassing is actually a new ad type. I think this was another question. And it like is just one huge image in Facebook. You'll see it in the ads whenever you go to create your ads. There's carousel, there's canvas, and canvas is I think a fairly newer feature where it's just a very big image that'll pop down. I think it's only in some placements, it's not in every one. But go ahead and try it out. You never know, it might work, and I don't know how many other advertisers are using it. So that's the beauty about testing first and testing often. You may beat out a competitor.
I think we have time just for one more quick question here. And so I'm going to ask Aaron's question with, can Facebook tell you when your target audience is most active so that you can pick the ideal time to schedule your ads?
I don't think you'll get that information right off the bat unless you're doing your followers from your Facebook business page in terms of, because then you can get Facebook insights, right, because you have a Facebook page, so you'll get your follower information. But kind of the same, I would say on the same question as before, go ahead and launch at when maybe your business hours are open, or even use your Google Analytics data to help fuel that decision, right? When do you get your most conversions? When's your best conversion rate? And start it with it that way. And that way you can pick your ideal times to schedule your ads. So that's what I would say from that standpoint. Use either some data from Google Analytics or see if you can get any data from your Facebook page. Otherwise, launch right away, and then, or launch kind of encompassing as much as you can, and then start to narrow down quickly. Whenever you launch a campaign, check back often. Look at day over day. Look at week over week. Don't just set it and forget it. Not a slow cooker. I'm sorry, I had to do that.
Not a slow cooker.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Unfortunately, we're at the hour mark, so we're going to have to close this out. But if you have any additional questions that you want to follow up with us on, please feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to answer any questions about DialogTech's Facebook integration. It's very exciting for us to be able to integrate this call data into Facebook and help marketers optimize or better optimize their Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising. So please do not hesitate to reach out, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Yeah, you'll be getting an email from us. So just go ahead and respond to the email if you have any questions. I think it's either going to come from Catherine or myself, but we'll see the responses. So if you guys have any other questions that didn't get answered, go ahead and shoot them over, and we'll field them for you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.